I didn't know I was coming to choir practice. I think we might just continue singing for a while. That's really neat. The acoustics are good and it all sounds so good. So we're playing a game. It was about 8 months ago, even quite to the day. It's Arkansas Fort Smith at home. And so we get a rebound and we're going to run transition. Some of you may not be basketball fans, but we've got a defensive rebound and we're going to go score on the other end of the floor. And so our girl outlets the ball to one of our teammates, and we have another teammate running ahead. And then our post player, Kellen Schneider, she's about 6'5", some of you probably remember that name. Her mom's a coach at Monterey, but she's running straight down the court to get a layup. And so we're running fast. We like to really play fast. And so two defensive players for Arkansas Fort Smith begin sprinting back to try to stop Kellen from getting the ball and scoring. And so we throw the ball at the sideline. It looks like she's going to be open because these two defenders are sprinting, not looking at each other. One's looking at the ball, one's looking at Kellen, and they run right together and they smack heads about the free throw line and fall down in the lane. And so Kellen obviously is going to be wide open to score. It's a great situation. So instead of scoring, Kellen stops and looks at these two girls on the floor and bends down to see if they're okay. And our teammate throws the ball right over her head out of bounds. And I'm thinking, what in the world are you doing? You know, if we're going to be sportsmen, let's wait until we're up 20 or 30 points to be nice to them. And so right then, I just thought, what has just happened? Luckily, we don't lose that game by 1 point. We happen to win that game. At the same time, later on, after that game, I'm asking Kellen, what exactly were you thinking right there? You know, why would you stop when we could have scored and help those girls? And they were, okay, don't worry. But she said, Coach, what would Jesus do? And I thought, that's the worst answer I could ever imagine. I don't want you to ask me, what would Jesus do? And at the same time, I think, well, Jesus could have scored and helped them miraculously at the same time. And everything would have been just fine. But that was sort of an example of some of the things I think our girls exhibited last year that I want to talk about a little bit. We have this is a story, you know, even in the prayer, the opening prayer, talk about us telling our story every day. You know, there's some stories that don't ever get old. You know, the gospel, it just doesn't get old. You know, marrying my wife, that story just never gets old. That's a good one, right, John? You know, the story, telling the story of last year, you know, I've had a few opportunities to speak and talk about it different ways. And it's a story that probably will never get old, but also it's a story that has got to continue. We've got to move along, and I'll talk about that here in just a minute. But this team, the story of it, I want to make a few things clear. We have some girls, and for the last number of years, I don't know how many years, at the end of the games, in the locker room, when we get together, win or lose, they'll always break out of their final huddle of the game day with glory to God. And that's always been sort of a neat thing that they came up with. But I want to say as we start that there is absolutely no credence to the fact that, you know, we won last year because our girls are Christians, or we won because our girls are trying to live well and live godly lives, because there are not national championship stories in the Bible. The apostles did not have a lot of worldly success, and so I don't want to come here this evening and hold up a team of girls or athletes as, well, God helped us win because they're trying to live right. That would be heresy. I mean, basically to say that God's going to give us success if we just honor Him in the world. That won't happen. And so it's neat that we did, but at the same time, I don't want that to be the reason that we happened to have our work last year. So just a couple of, I guess, spiritual truths I feel like we learned from the year that I was taught throughout the course of last year's storybook year. The first one, perspective provides peace. A proper perspective can provide peace. Last year, before we even started school, the previous year, our first team meeting, we met at Rest Haven Funeral Home at the hill that is the open tomb, and we had our first before school meeting out there because we wanted to frame our year in what's most important. You know, we knew we were going to have a chance to have a good year, but I didn't want us to think that was the final goal, and so we met out there to talk about, you know, there's something eternal. At the end of your life, what's going to be said? And so a proper perspective always can set things in the right frame. And so that's one thing we learned. And perspective has a lot of different ways to look at it. One of them is, how do we perceive the future? You know, what is our perspective of the future? You know, God holds things in His hand. And while at the same time we can't control everything, I think He desires us to be responsible and make plans. You can see some of the parables of how you want to count the cost before you build your towers, you want to make sure you're responsible, but at the same time, you don't control the future. And so our perspective of the future, realizing, it's in God's hands. Like James talks about, if it's the Lord's will. He wants us to be planning, but not feeling like we hold the future in our own hands. But the perspective of the future is very important. The perspective of the present. Last year, what we did, we really tried to make every day important. So our motto is just go 1-0 today. Just go 1-0 today. A lot of people can have plans. The great theologian Mike Tyson, you heard him. He said, everybody has a plan until they get hit in the mouth. And so you can plan for the future, but then every day, what are you going to do? Because you're going to get hit in the mouth. What we try to do is go 1-0 today. So our team last year, we didn't go 35-0. What we did, we went 1-0 35 times. Because any one of those days could have gone the wrong way. And so even in practice, we just desire every day to just go 1-0. And at the end of the day, if we didn't, we need to get better. So spiritually, what does that mean? You think, how can I go 1-0 today? Jesus gives us pretty simple, but incredibly profound and hard instructions. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And love your neighbor as yourself. And at the end of the day, can we sit down at the end of the day and say, hey, I went 1-0 today. I succeeded in that game plan for the day. That's a high calling. So just to think of the present. And then another thing about perspective is the past. I think one of the biggest, most difficult thing is to rightly remember, but also to accurately forget. For us as adults and us as Christians, one of the phrases, if you ever look at the side of your mirror in your car, over there it says, objects in the mirror are closer than they appear. All right, that has a lot of meaning, because we can get so worried about what's behind us, and that's all we concentrate on. And we can also let those things become so close that we just never get away from them. For our team right now, it's really important that we understand what's behind us, but we've got to look forward. We've got to look forward. I don't know if some of you, Tony Evans at Parkridge, he was a big gala for Parkridge. I don't know if some of you were able to go and if not, but he made a similar analogy. You've got to look through the windshield. You've got to look where you're going. You can't spend your life looking in the past. So that's really an important thing for us. One of our phrases we use in practice, because we want to get over mistakes quickly. I'll tell them, hey, get over it and get on with it. We've got to be able to get over it and get on with it. Now, in life, there's some serious things that come to us. And there's been some tragedies all of us have experienced in different ways. And that's not to make light of those. It's not to say, well, just forget it and get on with it. But we have to move forward. All right? You think what Paul wrote in Philippians, he says, here's one thing I do. Forgetting what is behind and straining and pressing on towards what is ahead. I press on to win the prize for which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus. And so he was able to forget what he needed to forget. And Paul had some bad stuff to forget. He really had some demons in his past that he had to move on from. And even some great victories in our past. Sometimes we can stare at our victories. I talk about I'll talk in a minute about that. I don't want to get to that too soon. But Paul knew what to forget. And he also knew what to remember. At the same time, every Sunday, we celebrate communion, which is a looking back and a remembering. So we have to know what's important to remember. You think about it in Psalm, praise the Lord, O my soul, and forget not all his benefits. I think sometimes we have a tendency to remember things we shouldn't and forget what we should. And I would like to challenge myself. I need to look back and remember God's faithfulness through these things and quit looking back at my mistakes and be thankful for God's grace. So, right perspective is really important. It's something I learned last year through that season. The second thing is, we're playing that national championship game. Again, some of you may not even know, we happened to win the national championship last year. We were playing against Alaska Anchorage in Indianapolis. It's a great team, really a good team, and we were fortunate. We were ahead probably about 5 minutes left by 12 points. Then with about 4 minutes, it was like 9 points. Then it got to 8 points. And about a minute and 20 seconds left. It was a 4-point game. And we had the ball. It was our ball, and our guard was dribbling the ball around half court. You can see the shot clock was running down. And it's one of those times where you think, what's going to happen here? Should I intervene and try to control the situation, or should I trust my teammates and let them handle it? And all year long, I trusted the team. And so there's no reason now for me to change. And so Nicole Hampton has the ball at half court, and shot clock is down to about 6 seconds, and I wonder what's about to happen. And sure enough, she drives in and shoots a shot from the free throw line off of 1 foot running. It's like a terrible shot, but it's something she had practiced before. But it's not something that we would say, hey, that was a great call by the coach. It was just fortunate. Well, she makes this shot with about less than a minute left. And sure enough, that sets things right and allows us to go on and win that game. What I learned from that is, hey, we're not in control. Sometimes we think we're in control of a situation, and we just have to realize we're not in control. Last year is a great example of that. Now, I don't know if you know all the different things that converged to make this happen last year. It was our first year that we were eligible for an NCAA Division II postseason play. And we had been NAI and we sat out 2 years, and this was the first chance ever to even play in the postseason for this team. We had 2 girls that sat out their previous year as seniors to come back for their 5th year as a senior and play in the postseason. And so the timing of that was incredible. For another girl that got hurt her ACL and missed a year as a freshman, and so now she was in her 5th year also. So we had 3 girls that just by chance were there, well, not by chance, but happened to be there by providence for their 3rd year, their 5th year, excuse me. It was the first year ever that the Division I, Division II, and Division III national championship games were all held in the same site. They've never done that before. And it just happened last year that happened. We started the year with UConn. So when anybody says we were undefeated, believe me, we were very soundly defeated at UConn. It was an exhibition game though, so it didn't count on the schedule and the records. But that was the best 56-point whooping I've ever had. It was awesome. And we started the year with UConn, and we ended the year in Indianapolis with the same team that we started with. Just really rare bookends to that year. Just so many things that converged, and it all just happened. Again, you can't think as a coach, man, I made that happen. I orchestrated that. That was God's hand working in situations, but he didn't necessarily work that for our good to win. It just happened to be that's the way it happened. But we weren't orchestrating those events. You know, some people may have a deistic approach, thinking that, God started things and he just lets it go. Whatever happens, happens. Now, I'm not saying I believe that, but I'm 100% confident that God does not care what zone defense I run. I think a lot of times we think that God is so interested in our little kingdoms that we forget really what he wants is us to be interested in his kingdom. And so we overemphasize our own worldly situations. And so in all those things, I don't feel like he had all plans so we could win and all those things work together so we could win. It just happened that way. Hopefully out of that he will be glorified. But at the same time, if we go 0-35 this year, hopefully out of that he can be glorified as well. But you probably won't have me back to talk next year if we go 0-35. I think sometimes we take ourselves too seriously. And I think that's really, really a scary thing for us. One of the most important things I'll tell our players is, and this doesn't sound very motivational, but I'll tell them, you're not that important. You are not that important. Because whenever we start to feel like we are that important, that's when the devil has a foothold in us and we become very selfish. So here's what I know about God's timing. Here's one thing that I think I can 100% confidently say what Paul said. You see, just at the right time, when we were still powerless, Christ died for the ungodly. God demonstrates his own love in us in this. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us. That's truth. I know about that timing. And so I think that we're not in control is really important to understand. And then see how God works through things. Another thing that we learned is sacrificial unity is a beautiful thing. Through our season, we learned that. You think in Psalm 133, it's written how good and pleasant it is when God's people live together in unity. And he goes on to give a good description that I'm not going to get into, but it's just a neat thing when people are unified. We had 3 girls that the previous year played a lot of minutes, that started, they got a lot of opportunity because of our 2 girls sitting out. And so that provided new opportunities for these other players. Well, when those 2 players came back, it caused those 3 players to have to maybe reduce their role, and they had to step back, they had to step down, they had to remove themselves a little from the limelight, and boy, they handled it great. And that's a rare quality. I mean, if you think about 15 college girls getting along, miracles still happen today. But that's really a rare thing, to have people all with the same purpose. You know, that concept of unity, I've been thinking a lot about that over the last months, of the difference between teamwork and unity. A lot of teams can have good teamwork, but they may not have really good unity. But when you have unity, something incredibly great can happen. You know, we've seen, you see through the book of Acts, how often when it's the apostles were together, or when they were together, it doesn't just mean they're sitting next to each other in a room. They were unified. A Greek word, the definition of the Greek word used there is moving along in unison, or progressing forward in unison rapidly. It's sort of a movement of things going the right way all together. And it's not just a physical thing. And every time they were together, you see those phrases throughout Acts, then a lot of times miracles started happening. That's when big things happen. The Spirit drew people together. So very like-mindedness, I think that's a really important thing. So you always know unity is important on a team. I mean, obviously Texas Tech hasn't figured that out, but the football team, no, I'm joking. That's a bad shot right there. Sometimes teamwork just doesn't work, but even for a team like that, if the unity's there, you can handle the lack of teamwork. Again, if you look through Acts, well, there's a lot of tough things that happened. It wasn't like everything was winning as far as in a physical, worldly sense. But every trial that came up, it strengthened them. And it made them stronger. And so even if in a year like when you see, man, everything wasn't imperfect last year, there was trials and tribulations, but those kids were together. And it made a difference. And we'll see this year how that works. It'll be interesting. We end up playing, so sacrificial unity, having the proper perspective, right? Knowing we're not in control. I mean, those three things are important. And we played in Florida over Thanksgiving last year, and I will say, I know somebody had to do it. You know, we had to go to Florida to play. This year we're going to Puerto Rico, so it's a rough life being a coach. But we played in Florida. We played 2 games. We won a game on Friday, we won a game on Saturday, and after the game Saturday, you know, the coach of the host school said, hey, you know, you guys won both games, you won the tournament. They gave us a trophy that stood about that tall. You know, and we won 2 games. It wasn't like anything major, and so it was neat. Okay, good. We took it to the hotel. And the next day, we start to leave to the airport because we had flown, and we're going to get in our vans and drive to the airport and come back to Lubbock. And our assistant coach come walking out with the trophy. He said, Coach, where are you going to put this? And you know, I said, are there any dumpsters around here? And he said, well, I think so. He said, are you serious? I said, yeah. Just take that and put it in the dumpster. I hate to give it back to the school, but we're not going to put it on the plane, carry it on the plane, or check it. When we get back to Lubbock, what are we going to do with it? So we ended up putting that trophy in the trash. And I know James Dobson tells a story. He says, life has a way of trashing your trophies. Life has a way of trashing your trophies. And you guys just think back to the things that either as children or as coaches, Little League, or in different, that you've won, all the ribbons, all the medals. What have you done with those? I mean, are you still just holding on to them? Now, I've told people, you know, we're not going to throw the national championship trophy in the dumpster. But at the same time, we haven't put a recliner out there in the lobby and every day go sit and just stare at it because it's time. You've got to move on. Because those trophies are really passing. They're fleeting. And just that experience of winning something, it can't be wrapped up in those trophies. And so success can be very seductive. You know, for sometimes, you know, Satan can't beat you down. He's going to lift you up and try to have you to be so successful that you think, hey, I've done this, I've got it. And that's a terrible place to be. When we flew to Indianapolis, it was just a fascinating experience. We fly there, people meet us at the airport, we have a bus, it's our own bus, we go to the hotel. They have a big pep rally in the hotel lobby for our girls when they get there, band music playing, gifts being given out, you know, so it's overwhelming. Then we decide we're going to go to eat. Well, we get on the bus to go eat. We're going to go probably a few blocks away to eat. 2 blocks away to a Noodles and Company, I think. Well, we get on the bus and the police escort comes, they have police motorcycles and cars there, and they stop traffic, and we go 2 blocks and they're stopping traffic. All right, and we get there, and then we go to practice, and it takes about 10 minutes, but every intersection, they stop traffic, and here come the lady chaps. It's sort of embarrassing, but they do that for every team there. But it gets to be, in some way, you can almost get numb to that where you expect it. Because when I came here tonight, there wasn't any police escorts to get here tonight. After a while, you can either get used to that, or you can just I don't necessarily like that. We want our girls to carry the water bottles and bring their own luggage in, and don't expect to be coddled and babied. And so that success can really change you quickly if you let it. And so after a while, it was almost too much. But you can also see how it can affect people when they also expect someone else to do something for them. Again, it draws me to these type of thoughts. 1 Peter, clothe yourself with humility toward one another. Because God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Humble yourselves, therefore, be under God's mighty hand, that He may lift you up in due time. And cast your anxiety on Him, because He cares for you. Because you know your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a lion, looking for someone to devour. And so on a team, you can allow that complacency or contentment or almost expectancy of entitlement to infect you. And then again, that's where Satan gets a foothold in you. So, here, this is sort of a crass way of saying it, but I'll tell it to my girls, but hopefully this will fit in here. I'll tell them, if you only look out for number one, you're going to step in number two. And just the more you think about yourself, the more likely you're going to step in some mess. So get your attention off yourself. So that's another lesson I learned. I was sitting in the gym after we played a game at home, and it must have been a game we won, because it was last year, and that was the only thing we did. It was so weird last year to think about that. And Coach David Carter, some of you may know David Carter. He coached at LCU, and he still works there. But he came up the steps. I was watching the guys' game. I must have been thinking about something that our girls had done wrong during the game, because he looked at me and said, as he walked up the steps, "Coach, are you enjoying this?" Because I must have had a sour look on my face, like a lot of us at times are apt to do when we're just thinking about what's wrong all the time. And made me stop and think. I said, I should be. If I'm not, I should be. And so it sort of turned my attitude a little bit. And I try to just enjoy things a little more. Rejoice in the Lord always. I say it again, rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. That doesn't mean we're always happy and laughing. But we should have a peace about us, even in the toughest time. That does not give in to frustration and anger and depression. But we find a joy in things we do. I just think, life, basketball, our jobs, our marriage, those things are to be enjoyed, not just endured. They're to be enjoyed fully, not just trying to make it through this. And so that was something I learned last year, and it was helpful, because even in a year where things seem to be going well, it's easy for our coach to focus on the negative. And we always have to find our mistakes. I think we should always be aware of what's going on, but not to just focus only on those things. So don't forget to enjoy it. Do not forget to enjoy it. So a lot of different things through the course of last year that were very helpful. I think God really opened up a lot of opportunities to learn, a lot of opportunities to talk about these things. Now, this is perfect timing, I hope. We start practicing again next Saturday, real, official practice day Saturday. So this will probably be the last talk I give on last year. I think I spoke of this at Quaker a couple weeks after we got back. And Dave Langford, he said, why don't you talk about that experience? And it made me think through these things that I've been talking about. And so maybe it's a good way to finish this, is to just share these things with you as well. And just say, it was a neat year, but the spiritual truth behind it is a lot more important. And so, what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his soul? It just does not matter that much. I've been thankful for the attention it's given our players and our school, but in the end, it's just not that big a deal. And that sounds, I don't know if that doesn't even sound right to your ears, but I don't want to just fall in love with the fact that we won a national. We can't even, some people I can't even remember 4 years ago we won the Super Bowl. And at the moment it's like they're on top of the world. But those things go by so fast because time goes by. So don't store up for yourself treasure on earth where moth and rust corrupt. And thieves break in and steal the store of yourself treasure in heaven. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And so I'm hoping, for me, the challenge will be not to let that be my treasure, what happened last year, but that Jesus would be the treasure. That our faith would be the treasure. And so, one last story real quick, and then I'll just say a prayer blessing and then turn it back to you. But the Lady Shap Way, this is interesting. We played the national championship game, and we've sort of taken the phrase, even this year we have t-shirts made with it says the Lady Shap Way, and there's a cross on the back. And here's sort of where that came from. In the national championship game, I was watching the broadcast when I got back, so I wanted to see it, and believe it actually happened. And as there was one point where Tess Bruffy, some of you don't know that family, they're just amazing people, and she was one of our best players. Luckily, she's back this year, so we still got some people that can go. She found out like 6 minutes left in that game, and it was a frustrating game for her. Just nothing seemed to go right for her, but she was frustrated. She found out, walked over to their coach's bench, and was going to shake their hand, just in a sign of respect. It's not something we teach. It was just something she went to do, and their coach was sort of busy at the end of his bench, but another one of the assistants got up and shook her hand, and she started walking back to her bench, sort of dejected that she had caused the trouble to our team of fouling out. Well, the announcer, as she walked back, said, as she was doing that, said, what is Tess doing? Oh, she's going over to the other bench to shake the coach's hand. I don't think I've ever seen that before. And I think she said, I guess that's just the Lady Shap Way. And I thought, that's pretty neat, the Lady Shap Way. If that's a way of sacrifice, if that's a way of respect, if that's a way of deferring to others, then that's what we need to be doing. And so I just thought that was a neat phrase, and so we took that. So, again, I appreciate your time and your attention, and if you have some things you'd like to visit with afterwards, that would be tremendous. But I'm just thankful for the opportunity to speak with y'all. And really, it's a great group of young ladies, a great group of families. If you have a chance to be around them at games or on campus, or just come by to the gym sometime, you'd be blessed by getting to know those girls and their families, because really that's where the magic happens, is right there. So let's pray, and then I'll turn it back to you, Eddie. God, thank you so much that you love us, that you do hold us in your hand, that you have purpose for us, even from the beginning, and then it had to do with relationships. So, Father, help us to be in close relationship with you, and help that to reflect in our relationships with others. God, just do your will in our lives, whether that means a week of financial business success, or whether it means a week of struggle and conflict. God, help us not to waste the joy that comes our way. Help us not to waste the pain that comes into our lives. But in all things, you'd be honored by what we say, what we do, what we think. So create in us clean hearts, God, and renew right spirits within us. In Jesus' name.